Following is the audio of the meeting of the 663rd Regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting held September 13th, 2018 at 1110 West Washington, Suite 250, Phoenix, Arizona 85007. Test.
My phone says 10 o'clock, so I guess it's time to call to order the 663rd Regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting, September 13th, 2018. And I hate to do this, but the chair would...
We need to do roll call. Thank you.
Let's do roll call.
Good morning. Commissioner Garay?
Present.
Commissioner Heupel?
Present.
Commissioner Lawless?
Here.
And noted that he is appearing telephonically. Commissioner McClintock?
Here.
Present. Thank you. As a courtesy and public service to everybody, please silence or turn all cell phones off. If you must take a call, please be courteous to those around you and take the conversation out into the hall. Thank you. It's all yours, sir.
At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Heupel beat you. Okay. Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless?
Yeah.
Commissioner Heupel?
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes.
Okay, we are going into...
Can you specify the agenda item?
The agenda item is Sims versus Arizona Racing Commission. Ronald A. Sims appealed to the Maricopa County Superior Court of the Arizona Racing Commission's order to reject the gaming director's ruling to grant a racing license to Ronald A. Sims. The commission may vote to go into executive session, blah, 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 blah. And I guess I'm supposed to read, if the executive session is approved, minutes of and discussions made at an executive session are required by law to be kept confidential and shall not be communicated to any person outside this meeting room except to members of the board, the person who is the subject of the discussion pursuant to ARS 38-431-3A1, the Auditor General in connection with an audit authorized by the law, and the Attorney General. So.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second and carried via the roll call, so are we going to break then, sir, to go into executive session?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the time is 10:02, and the first open session is recessed. Thank you. Following is the second open session of the September 13th, 2018 Arizona Racing Commission meeting held at 1110 West Washington, Suite 250, Phoenix, Arizona 85007.
I'd like to call back.
Hang on. Go ahead.
I'd like to call back to order the 663rd Regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting. Do we need a roll call?
Okay, Commissioner Garay?
Here.
Commissioner Heupel?
Here.
Commissioner Lawless?
Here.
Commissioner McClintock?
Here.
Thank you. And again, please silence all phones, and if you must take a call, please take it out in the hallway. It is 10:16 a.m. on the second open session.
Okay, and we're going to move to item C, new business. And the following new business items are for status report, presentation, discussion, and possible action by the Commission. Item number 1 is the status of off-track betting facility application brought to the Commission. I don't know what that means.
I think item 1, what I should do is probably just read the sheet that you have so everybody is kind of aware of the situation. So the Division of Racing expects an increased number of OTB applications from its commercial racetrack committees going forward. As the Division of Racing performs ownership and background investigations of each OTB location, and provided that the application has all the required documentation, including city or county approvals, a recommendation will be brought to the Commission for approval or denial of the application. The Division of Racing understands that there is currently much discussion between committees in regards to the Interstate Horse Racing Act, and specifically the notion that permission must be obtained from the operating track within 60 miles before a proposed OTB location can be approved by the Commission. The Division of Racing believes that the Commission has a choice on whether to enforce the specific 60-mile provision and intends to bring each qualified OTB application, regardless of location, to the Commission. The approval recommendation will be made on the merits of the application and what is in the best interest of racing in the state, and not the vicinity in relation to any racetrack. The Division of Racing asks the Commission to vote for the acceptance of this practice and encourages the Commission to follow this directive as well.
Well, I don't think, for one thing, we can't supersede law, but I think it's been pretty much agreed on by the parties not to enforce the 60-mile radius. You're getting a head shake from Turf Paradise. So, you know, the commission, my personal opinion is that this is something that can't be enforced. That's just an opinion. And, you know,
That we can't enforce the 60-mile rule, or?
yeah, I don't think it's enforceable. So what are you asking us to do? To vote to set the practice?
Of our practice of bringing the OTB applications to you regardless of location.
Okay. Well, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept this practice.
Second.
We need a roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Garay,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless,
Yes.
Commissioner Heupel,
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries then.
Sorry?
Explain that again, I didn't understand.
What this proposal means is that we will continue to bring up OTB applications to the Commission regardless of locations.
Oh, yeah, this is your agreement.
New business item number 2, Pima County off-track betting facility. So, Greg, you want to read this?
Yes, this has to do with the legislation passed in 2016 that live dog racing ended, but allowed for the dome to remain. And as everyone knows, the dome will expire January 1st, 2018. Currently, there are 5 OTBs in Pima County that take horse race simulcast signals supplied by Turf Paradise. They also take dog race signals, and those obviously are supplied by TGP. A dispute has surfaced on who has controlling interest of those OTBs once the dome expires, Tucson Greyhound Park or Turf Paradise. Tucson Greyhound Park has asked the Commission to provide guidance going forward, specifically on who has controlling interest in the OTB. TGP pays the expenses, including employee salaries. With the Turf Paradise permit renewal turned in May, Turf Paradise included contracts with the existing OTBs. In speaking with TGP, all they're asking for is that they have the right to negotiate horse signals with whomever they choose. And those contracts that were submitted with the renewal application, they had an expiration date of, if I'm correct, 2021. So, with the renewal, no. The rule specifically states that once the permit is approved, the OTB network will then be approved by the director. However, the issue is that are the contracts as of right now in the permit for Turf Paradise has not been approved. So how can they sign up OTBs to long-term agreements and then essentially have TGP have no choice on who to negotiate the simulcast signals for horses specifically on top?
Okay. Well, Michael, you've signed up to speak on this issue, so this would probably be a good time for you to come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Michael Rossi appearing on behalf of Tucson Greyhound Park. I also have Michael Vangelli with me today. He is legal counsel for the park and can address additional legal questions as and if they come up. As all of you are aware, I have been representing the Tucson Greyhound Park at the state legislature for plus or minus 20 years and was in the middle of the new law in 2016 that ultimately prohibited live greyhound racing in the state of Arizona. Some years before that law went into effect, Phoenix Greyhound Park had ceased live greyhound racing. They had the ability to continue with OTB facilities based on a provision that was in existing law that applied to dog tracks in small counties. During 2016, and even before, in 2014 and 15, I had battled with animal rights activists at the legislature, and the pressure to end live racing was clearly becoming inexorable. And in 2016, multiple animal rights groups had formed an alliance between themselves. They hired 2 significant law firms, and they even worked with the lobbyists for Turf Paradise, who have told me this, that they were all equally focused on trying to terminate live dog racing in the state of Arizona. As part of that political process, we negotiated an agreement whereby Tucson Greyhound Park would retain its permit exactly the way Phoenix Greyhound does, that they could continue with simulcasting and holding a permit even though they had no live racing, and that the dome, the requirement that any outside commercial permittee gain the approval of all Pima County commercial permittees, would terminate January 1 of 19. We are now on the doorstep of that date, and not surprisingly to me, we're going to have some questions and issues in that transition. After that date, we will try to negotiate deals. We will continue with our OTB facilities. We will continue with dog signal. And if we can reach agreements with commercial horse racing permittees, we will continue to do that as well. All of our OTB facilities are relationships that we've had for years. And in every single case, we supply all the equipment, all the personnel, the safe, etc. in those locations. Until January 1 of 19, no outside commercial permittee has the legal right to do that in Pima County. And so we are perplexed by the purported agreements and what frankly has amounted to interference with our relationship with long-term bars and restaurants. The Dome has existed for way more years than I've been around. Turf Paradise, other commercial permittees have direct access to 85% of the population of this state, 90% of the bars and restaurants in this state. We have relationships with less than half a dozen facilities in one county of 1 million people, in a state with 6.5 million people. After January 1, if we can work out a deal with them, that's great, we'd like to. After that, they have dozens, hundreds of facilities they can form a relationship with. But to go into the facilities that we have an ongoing relationship and suggest you are going to set up 2 separate, side-by-side OTB facilities, we do not believe is in the best interest of the general public, nor in the best interest of the broader community. We think there should be competition in the industry. There should be multiple providers, but they should be operated in a reasonable and orderly fashion. And we would request the Commission's assistance in ensuring that, both from now to the end of the year, when we do, Pima County permittees have exclusive rights, but also after that point in time. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Vangelli could provide any additional legal background if the commissioners would like, but we thank you very much for taking your time to hear this issue today.
So for the current, 5 OTBs that Tucson Greyhound Park has, you have contracts with them through, I think you said 2021, or?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gray, yes, we have contractual relationships with those, varying terms of yes, we do. We do, and we have, and we staff them, supply them, run the whole operation.
I mean, the kind of way I'm looking at this is these are your OTBs right now, and until.
Excuse me, the date is wrong.
Oh.
We have contracts to the end of the year, and they roll over every year.
Okay.
It was Turf Paradise's contract
Yep.
up into 2021.
Okay. But, I mean, the way I'm looking at this right now, these are your OTBs, and you had the protection of the dome until January 1st, 2019, and no one else should be in there even talking to your OTBs. And, I mean, to me, this is almost like somebody else trying to undercut an existing business. And with what Michael was speaking about earlier, with what happened here in Arizona to live greyhound racing, Horsemen, you got it next. They figured out how to do it in Arizona. They're getting ready to do it in Florida. And if you all don't start working together and stop fighting amongst each other, horse racing is going to come to an end at some point in time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other?
Well, Michael, you made reference to some purported or agreements that other people have made. What agreements were you referring to?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Heupel, Turf Paradise has submitted agreements to the commission, to the division staff, purporting to be contracts with our existing
Starting
OTB
January 1.
providers, and have had discussions with those people, and I want to be careful about getting into this, but we've heard from some of those owners that they feel like some of the information they have received has been not entirely accurate. I wasn't in those discussions. I don't want to go deeply into that, other than to suggest that we believe it's inappropriate that this activity is taking place at this point in time. We believe it's premature.
Thanks, Michael.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. We've had quite a struggle getting to this point. The owners have invested millions and millions of dollars over the year and are simply trying still to recoup some of that investment. So we thank the Commission for its attention to this matter.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Michael Vangelli. I'm an attorney in Tucson, Arizona, and along with Andrew Freed, we're going to be representing Tucson Greyhound Park. I think Mr. Rossi pretty much said everything that needs to be said. There are some legal issues with regard to whether or not Turf Paradise has the right to enter into contracts with the OTBs in Pima County, Arizona, especially since those OTB contracts need to be approved by the city of Tucson or Pima County, depending on what jurisdiction has rights over them. We believe that that is an interference with our contractual relationship, and as Ms. Heiser just stated, those contracts roll over as of January 1st, 2019. So they're still in existence, and they still will be in existence for the dog track facilities. In addition to that, as Mr. Heupel indicated, we have to work together with the horses and dogs, even though we don't have live dog racing in Arizona, and we may not have live dog racing in Florida in the future. So tracks are closing all over the United States that run horses, and I think it's important if we're going to keep Turf Paradise, Arizona Downs, and Rito working horses in Arizona for the public. We need to work together on the OTB issues. We're prepared to go forward and negotiate with Turf Paradise and anyone else that's willing to negotiate a contract as of January 1st, 2019 for a signal. And those contract discussions are ongoing at this time. So we'd like that the board consider that information. And if any member of the commission has any questions of me, I'll try to answer them at this time.
Thanks, Michael. I have no question from me. All right.
No, I mean, I'm just still looking at this as like, yeah, this is your OTB, and I would think there would be a gentleman's agreement in the industry, not go messing in somebody else's business, but, you know.
They're not only our
Apparently we don't.
OTBs, we have the right to run them for dogs
Yeah.
as of January 1st. So what happens as of January 1st? We need to talk about it, we need to discuss it, and we need to come to some resolution. If we don't come to a resolution, we're going to end up in lawsuits, and I don't think anybody wants that. It's not good for anyone. Any of the parties to this issue or the public generally in the state of Arizona. So I think it's got to be addressed, it's got to be worked out, and hopefully this commission can make the final decisions that's going to be beneficial to all concerned.
So for today, what are we looking?
For today, what you are deciding is that Tucson Greyhound Park has control of the OTVs after the dome expires, and they are able to negotiate with whoever they choose for the horse race signals.
So moved.
Okay, we got Dave Johnson and Buzz Alston signed up to speak on this issue too, so we'd like to hear what they have to say.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
I would like to as well.
Okay, Jay, well,
So who's,
put you on the sheet. David?
Director Sis, Chairman McClintock, members of the commission, for the record, my name is David Johnson. I'm the Assistant General Manager at Turf Paradise. Let me start by saying I have opened up a lot of OTVs. Okay, in fact, I think it's pretty safe to say that I've opened up more OTVs.
Dave?
Yes, sir.
Dave, can you speak up so
Yes.
I can hear you?
How's that?
That's good.
Okay. I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that I have opened up more OTVs for any racetrack than anybody in the entire United States. Okay. When I get a commitment from an OTV owner who says he wants to have off-track betting in his facility, the very next step for me is to ask that owner, does he have any interest, or do they have any interest in having dog racing in their facility? And what I tell them is, it's a completely separate company. I have no authority here. It's entirely up to them if they would want to move in, but I can put you in contact with those people. There will be some accommodations that will have to be made. We may have to extend the betting booth to put in a different window. We may even have to put in an entirely new betting booth, because that's the way we've done it at other locations, just to keep them separate, because they are two separate companies. But it is always, and it always has been, the OTV owner's decision, not ours. Now, when Mr. Sims called the OTV owners in Tucson, which people have said, referred to as interference, I was on those calls, so I can tell you what was said. What Mr. Sims was relaying to the OTV owners was that at the current time, we were in a negotiation with Tucson Greyhound Park to keep it status quo. But at that time, negotiations had kind of dropped off. And we didn't know what was going to happen after January 1st. Our contracts, which we submitted to the Arizona Department of Gaming, Racing Division, are for the term of our permit. Every time we submit a racing permit, we submit our OTV applications with those contracts matching the same exact dates that we request in our permit. This is nothing new. We have always submitted contracts this way ever since I have been at Turf Paradise and before that. Even the locations in Tucson Greyhound Park, it has always been required that we have a contract with the OTV in Tucson, every OTV. I have a permit signed by Mr. Casillas saying that I am allowed to operate in those OTVs, because that is the only way they can get a horse racing signal. A horse racing signal cannot be offered by Tucson Greyhound Park. They have to get it through somebody else. They have to get it through a permittee. In this case, it's Turf Paradise. But when we talked to those owners, what we were letting them know was, look, after January 1st, if we don't have an agreement in place with Tucson Greyhound Park, then you, as an owner, will have to decide, do you want us to build an extension into that booth and make it a little bit bigger so we can put our own teller in there? Do you want us to build a separate booth? However you want it to go, that's what we will have to do. But we were explaining to the owners that it was their decision. Now, one of the owners obviously interpreted that to mean it's us or them. It's Tucson Greyhound Park or Turf Paradise. That's not what was the intent. That was not the message that was trying to be sent to these owners. Now, he obviously heard it that way. And I met with him later, and I tried to explain to him how it was, what the message was supposed to be. And I apologized to Alicia because she was rightfully upset, and I don't blame her. But that's not what the message was supposed to be. We have contracts with these locations. We're required to have contracts with these locations by the Department of Racing. We have, in the past, every time we've submitted them, received permits to operate in these facilities. That is the only way a horse racing signal can be shown to an OTB. It is the only way a horse racing signal can be shown at a permittee site. Okay? The laws do not allow for any permittee in the state to simulcast somebody else's signal. Why? We don't know. The only way you can do that is if you are officially an OTB in that facility for that signal only. So I hope that helps clear it up. And I will step down to Mr. Alston.
Well, up until recently,
Yes,
Turf was pretty much the only game in town for a horse signal, but couldn't they now get a signal from someone else? We now have 3 horse tracks here in Arizona.
Well, they could receive a signal from Arizona Downs, yes. But again, we do have contracts with these
Right.
facilities to send them the signal. And again, our contracts match our permit, which is what is always required and has been requested by the Arizona Department of Racing.
Are your contracts with the facility, or is your contract to an agreement to send the signal to Tucson Greyhound?
Our contracts are with the facilities and with Tucson Greyhound Park. Now, our contracts with the facilities match our permit. Our agreement with Tucson Greyhound Park expires at the end of the year, and that's what we've been trying to negotiate. What can we do going forward? How can we make it work?
Keep working. Buzz, do you have something?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Buzz Alston. I represent Turf Paradise and have been with this commission.
Let's move the microphone if you want.
Have been with
6 to 8 inches off.
6 to 8 inches. Since just about 20 years I've been here. I will confess at the beginning of my remarks that I have a very, very warm spot in my heart for Tucson Greyhound Park. I worked at Tucson Greyhound Park during the 60s for 7 years. And I was the maintenance electrician and the lure operator during that period of time. And,
Buzz, can you speak up just a hair?
yes, I'm sorry. I said I worked at Tucson Greyhound Park for 7 years during the 60s. I was the maintenance electrician and I was the lure operator there. And that was in the era of the Funk family ownership. Is that better?
Mr. Lawless, is that better?
I can hear you. I'm having a hard time hearing Buzz.
Can you hear me better now?
I can, thank you.
Okay, yes, she's moving the furniture. But anyway, that's kind of my inbred bias when it comes to the race to the dog track in Tucson. With my wife and I through college and undergrad and graduate school. In terms of the dispute that we're dealing with right now, the Turf Paradise contract runs until 2021 with Tucson Greyhound Park, and they have the right under that contract until that period of time to control the signals go into Tucson Greyhound Park. And it's obvious to all of us that the industry is changing, the products are changing, and change will have to come. But at this stage of the game, I would urge that there was no action that this commission should take right now, other than to encourage everybody to continue to comport with their contract obligations until 2021, and between now and then, that we talk together and see if we can't figure out a way going forward.
Thanks, Buzz. Yeah.
I agree totally with Buzz.
Thanks, Tom.
Good morning, everyone. Jay Wells with the Retail Racetrack, the sole commercial horse racing permittee in Pima County. One of the things that's the elephant in the room is how this expiration of the dome rule is going to affect Retail Racetrack, and I want to kind of catch you up with what our position is. We do believe that Pima County is the only county in the state left to require to run 140 live race days in order to have parlors. And this was something that was, I will use the word manipulated, back in the early 90s. The only person that I know in this room that was aware of it at the time was Vince Francha of Turf Paradise. But in essence, it was a compromise to get simulcast racing going, period, in the state. And by default, with the 140 live race day restriction, that the dog track got the right to run the parlors and not Retail. Retail never ran 140 days. And the legislation, as you know, states for counties with 1.5 million or more, meaning Maricopa, that they have the right, they were required to run 157 days unless they have an agreement with the HBPA, to make it short. For all other counties, in an effort to get Yavapai opened up about 6 or 10 years ago, they just waived that. And so Pima County's language still says we have to run 140 live race days to even have more than 20 dark days at our own facility, or be engaged in OTB parlors. But the travesty and the collateral damage done by the dog track elimination legislation has had a severe effect, or threatening to us to a point of an existential threat. And basically, the dome rule said something very simple, that both commercial permittees in Pima County had to give permission. Ergo, they needed to get paid in order to allow an outside signal to come in. Well, when this was done, the dog track knew that they couldn't get a horse signal, so they had to go through Turf Paradise, which was the only big player in the state at the time, in order to pay it. So the result and the status quo as we stand here today is that out of the wagering in Pima County, 66.5% goes to Turf, 24.75% goes to the dog track, and they operate the parlors. They've got the expenses of that included in that, and we get 8.75% for basically giving them permission, which is the only avenue that we have. With the expiration of the dome rule, we just don't get anything. We've been told we're not going to get anything from Turf Paradise. So we've been up before you to address this, and we think that it is our backyard. It is our market. We have no issues with the dog track parlors, but I think everyone is aware that they've had trouble trying to expand the parlors. I think it was as little as 10 or 12 years ago, there were 10 parlors or so in Pima County, and with the problems that the dog tracks had, they've not been able to open up any additional parlors, and one was recently denied by the city council that had been an existing parlor that just moved a location, which we do believe is unfair business practice, but that's not our problem. We have asked to be considered, and that Pima County needs some sort of recognition, because what will technically happen if the law passes and goes through without your influence as of January 1, it means there's going to be this giant sucking sound from Pima County to either go to Yavapai County or Maricopa County. And so that 66.5% will basically go to 100%, and theoretically the only money left in Pima County would be the tellers' salaries. That's about it. There might be some other printing contracts, but very minimal. We believe that the local government's not going to stand for this. We don't think that it's fair. We do believe that there needs to be some sort of balance in this. And if I may, we did request, and Tuesday actually held a meeting, HBPA hosted it, and everyone was in attendance. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of y'all that did show up. But we had members of the HBPA, Arizona Downs, Turf Paradise, Retail Racetrack, and thank you, Jay, for showing up as well. Appreciate you monitoring that. The long and short of it is this. We need more parlors in Pima County. We need to lift the handle. With the constrictions on the dog tracks being able to do so, there has to be another way. So one way is that these carpetbaggers, my word, are going to come in and take all the money out of Pima County, and we're going to do everything that we can to fight that. Or we are seen as a junior partner. We do believe that these larger tracks, we're a sixth of the population of the state, so Rito's a small track. We just want to survive. But as it stands right now, we will get $0. So out of the $2 million takeout, we're getting like $160,000, period. $80,000 of that goes to purses. We're not asking for control.
Currently, that 8% represents,
and that has dropped in my time since over 200,000 down as the parlors have closed. Of the 5 parlors, which technically there's only 4, one of them is the dog track location. One of those is scheduled to go to the county's bought it, and I think that the Golden Pins will close down in April. So we're only leaving 3. So these larger tracks from out of county, they should come in. We embrace them if they will cooperate with us and give us our fair share of market. The only other alternative we have is to lobby and go to the legislature, and I think you've seen before as the Churchill Downs contract went through you guys, eventually this boils down to special law. Does the existing laws put a disadvantage to Rito Racetrack? I think everyone in this room would say yes. But we want to iterate. We are not trying to get in and take... Rito is going to always be a small track. We just want the place to survive. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Our threshold is very low. We get in giant fights when we have these meetings about $160,000 when there's $2 million taken out of just our county, much less the entire state. So, at the meeting on Tuesday, we do make headway. There was 5 takeaways that I'd like to leave you with. The first was Leroy and Lloyd both opened up the meeting saying that they represented all horsemen and they wanted all tracks to have an equitable amount of purse money. One of the other takeaways was from the chairman of our board who was in the meeting, Russell True, and he said, this is analogous to what we're asking for in Pima County is analogous to the ADW contracts. What is a source market fee other than the fact that we're giving Churchill Downs permission to take wagers all over the state for 8.6% of the overall handle? So that is indeed the permission thing that kind of mirrors what the Dome Law was, and again, what we're asking for going forward in the future. In return, though, we would balance that out by being loyal and active partners to promote those parlors, have them in our program, have them on our website. We think that the joint venture with both tracks, if need be, it is something that we think would be a positive for the horse racing industry overall. The alternative is that when someone comes up for an OTB parlor, then one of the larger tracks is going to protest it in front of you, and we're going to have to protest it in front of you. And for every parlor, and it's just going to end up being this infighting that is ridiculous and a waste of energy, because the last takeaway that I'd like to leave you with is one thing. At that meeting, we proposed starting something called the Arizona Horse Racing Industry Alliance. And this issue of Pima County is territory that's going to be a small battle, and unfortunately it's amongst the stakeholders. But can you imagine that if we all came together, came out with an equitable solution to this issue of purse distribution, which is basically what it's about, and then we all sit on the side of the table as the issues in the legislature come forward with sports book, growth of the different tracks, maybe even the fairs coming back in. That's going to play a part. There needs to be a forum outside this room and outside this commission meeting where this can be voiced, and I think the motto of the place is leave your emotions at the door. Let's get this going in the right direction. We do believe Rito's has every valid point to stay and participate in any distribution of purse monies from the parlors generated in our backyard and our market. Otherwise, we're going to have to continue to lobby to have that, what we believe is an egregious restriction on us to where we're not allowed to have parlors to go down that road. We think the best thing for the horse racing industry overall is cooperation. So I urge you to take us into account on that. More importantly, take the entire industry statewide into account. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. I know the horsemen have your back. There's a lot of work left to be done between now and the end of the year, but I'm sure it's all going to get worked out, and it's not really going to be so much our job as it is the industry's job to come together and get this thing straightened out. Is anybody else? I think that's it for item 2.
I hate to do this, but I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss some of the legal issues.
Okay.
Is there a second?
You also have a pending motion that hasn't been dealt with.
Rory's motion. Yeah.
I don't. Okay, if there's a second, that's fine. I was going to offer an alternative motion.
It can be done. You can do that.
Yeah.
Alternative to Rory's motion or Dave's motion?
The days that we...
Let's deal with Rory's motion first. Restate your motion.
Yeah, right. Or can I just pull it for now?
Yeah, you could.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like
for lack
you're going
of
to need to
second.
have legal advice before you can rule on it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So I'll pull my motion.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Tom, what's your idea?
Well, I was just gonna suggest that we table this and let the stakeholders continue to negotiate, and until it comes to a head, there's no need for us to take action, I don't think, but, so I move to table.
Well, is there anything keeping you from treating the current Tucson Greyhound Park OTBs as theirs and until whatever gets resolved?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, if I may interject here, what we heard is Dave Johnson is correct. He has submitted contracts that are good for the term of his permit. It is also true that those contracts have not been approved by the commission or the director. You've also heard Mr. Alston say, we have contracts for 2021 with these OTBs. And then you've heard from Mr. Rossi, all we want is a right to negotiate for the horse signals between now, the 2 commercial racetrack committees. So you can do a couple things. You could not approve the contracts until the permit is approved. And then at that end, so the contracts will be null and void until Turf Paradise permit is approved. Or you can say, we're not going to recognize these contracts until and give Tucson Greyhound Park the right to negotiate after for the signals beginning January 1st, 2019. That's what they're asking for. They're asking for the right to negotiate. However, Turf Paradise is saying, we've got these contracts for 2021, and Tucson Greyhound Park, by virtue of those contracts, have to negotiate with us.
But those contracts have, as far as for us, have not been approved.
That's correct.
So it seems like it's premature for us to do anything.
Well, but I think they're sitting on contracts and waiting for us to determine whether they should move forward with them or move them, or just set them aside and allow Tucson Greyhound Park to have the right to negotiate starting January 1st. I think that's the issue, and that's not going to be resolved by any.
You could also approve those contracts only through January 1st, 2019, or again, recognize that they're not approved.
But if we approve them till just January 1st, 2019, does that still also give Tucson Greyhound Park the right to negotiate on their, have the right to negotiate themselves? I'm thinking not, but.
Why
Well,
would
they
the
have an
status
agreement
quo?
right now.
I mean, right now, until January 1st, nothing changes.
They have a horse signals with Turf Paradise.
Nothing changes.
If what I'm hearing correct, what Tucson Greyhound Park is asking, give us the right to negotiate for the horse signals after 2019 on which committee we want to get the best deal from.
Well,
So that would be, what we're looking at is they would want to be able to, starting January 1st, go talk to anyone, not even the Joe.
They can be talking to people now.
Yeah.
Because from what I understand, from right now, the contract extension they have with Turf Paradise is good through January 1st, 2019.
okay, so basically there are two options. One, after January 1st, they develop a relationship like the one they have now, or after January 1st, the relationship becomes like the relationship between the horses and American Greyhound, where the Tucson Greyhound Park has the dog signal in Tucson, some other provider has the horse signal in Tucson,
Right.
like in Maricopa County.
Right. But again, Tucson Greyhound Park wants the right to either choose Arizona Downs or Turf Paradise.
And what do we have to do with that?
There's a contract that Turf Paradise has with these OTVs for the horse signals
We
that
don't-
runs through 2021.
But they would have to be
We
approved.
haven't approved them, so that's moot right now.
Mr. Chairman, may I add a piece of information I think is important? May I?
Sure.
Jay Wells,
These are
Inlet
great.
Retail Racetrack. The dome rule still is in effect, and so we have been trying to get attention to address this matter with all the stakeholders, and we have been, our contract, our annual contract was over with at the end of May to allow the signals to come into Pima County. So the dome rule still gives us that permission, and we have been making 30-day extensions through each month with the guarantee that this would be addressed. We finally came to a situation at the end of August where we did not feel like we were having this properly addressed, and we made an agreement that we would extend the permission for the signal to come into the county until September 15th, post this meeting, post the meeting that I addressed earlier on Tuesday. And I would say that on behalf of our board, I safely can say that we would extend it for another 30 days if you allowed the stakeholders to address these issues as well, but they have to be in total. The dog tracks are part of Pima County, and this issue of the money's flowing from Pima County, one of our positions is no more money out of Pima County, more money in Pima County. And so we will grant that extension until, when is the commission's meeting in October?
The 11th.
The 11th. We will do it until October 15th to give times for the stakeholders to do it. This has got to be addressed with us at the table. We don't want to be set on the side like it so often happens. And we would be willing to grant that extension again till October 15th if it gives it the stakeholder. If you're sure that the stakeholders will sit down and try to work these out in toto for what does Pima County look like post January 1. Thank you.
And my point is that you guys need to work this out with the horsemen because, you know, they may not want to take money away from one track and give it to another track. It's their decision. It's their horse racing, so they need to decide who gets what. They've already made a commitment that they want Yavapai to exist. It's just a matter of how much money you guys get per year, and I think that's ongoing.
But with what Jay said, do all the permittees agree to that? To postpone a discussion today and continue negotiation, and I'm kind of right now seeing not all permittees agree to that. So
Well, I think you need to poll everyone, please.
Sure.
So that was Buzz's point.
Here comes Buzz, so maybe he's got another point.
I have another point. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and with all due respect, when the application for the renewal of and issuance of the permits to operate the OTVs that are submitted, when they are administratively complete, and we've been told they were administratively complete, then all that remains is in essence, rubber stamping of the commission that it's approved. But it does not mean the contracts as between the contracting parties is not valid. There's one party that's not represented here, and that's the venue owner, the lessor. And so these contracts that Turf Paradise has now with Tucson Greyhound Park are valid until the 2021, until the anniversary date in 2021. because that's but if you were to, and they're valid today, they're enforceable today. If you would today say for some reason we're not going to put our stamp of approval on this, then and only then would that contract or contracts be terminated. But I don't think you have any grounds to do that. It's never been done. This is the way it's been handled for 20 years. I mean, I'm just not talking about something new here. It's the way it's been handled. And so all I'm saying is that we're part of the contract. Susan Graham's part of the contract. The owner of the venue is a part of the contract, and I think that I do, as I said before, I do think that all parties need to negotiate. But I don't think this is something that this commission has any need or reason to act on. And I don't know what your action would be. I guess you'd say, please go and bargain in good faith. That's a reasonable admonition. But I think we just got to work together. But at this stage of the game, the contracts with all these venues is binding on us and everybody else.
And therein lies the issue. The contracts, as Mr. Alston said, are good through 2021. So those OTB owners and TGP can't negotiate with a different permittee. Turf Paradise is saying, we got them. And if Tucson Greyhound Park has control of those OTBs, Turf Paradise is saying, we have them.
So we're talking about 4 OTBs.
Yes.
Now, how about any new OTBs in the future?
That's up for negotiation.
Well, I mean,
there's no doubt there's going to be expansion in Pima County for the OTB network. Okay? There's no doubt that there's several stopgap measures in place, meaning county approval, City of Tucson approval for those OTBs, and ultimately you. You can approve them, you can disapprove any OTB expansion. But if one permittee is asking for the right to negotiate for horse race signals, and the other horse race permittee says, we have them till 2021, therein lies the issue.
let me ask you this. If I own Jay's Bar in Tucson and I've got an OTB and I decide that I want to break the contract, can I do that?
Under the Turf Paradise submitted contracts.
What if I say I don't want horse racing?
I do not believe that the OTB owner can break that contract.
Well, if they don't want horse racing anymore,
I
what
don't
happens?
believe there's a provision in that contract for the
So-
OTB owner to get out of that contract unless Turf Paradise lets them out. There's no provision for that OTB owner to say, I don't want horses anymore. Turf Paradise has to let them out of that agreement.
I don't see how that works.
Greg, could you say that one more time?
Because your bar sucks.
Yeah, my bar is going out of business.
As I read the contracts,
An OTB.
and I don't have a contract in front of me, it requires the permission of Turf Paradise to let that OTB owner out of the contract. The OTB owner has no right, no clause in there, there's a 30-day notice, a 60-day notice, nothing in there. Again, I don't have the contracts in front of me, so.
So I guess what the dispute is, or what we're looking at right now, is who is really kind of the controlling interest of these OTBs going forward?
You have TGP that pays the expenses.
I would look at it as they're the ones that got them. They're the ones that have been paying the expenses. So even after January 1st, 2019, they still are the controlling interest of that.
What Mr. Alston's pointed out is we got the contracts for 2021.
But those contracts through 2021 were because of Tucson Greyhound Park's work on getting those OTBs and working with Turf to get the signal.
Those agreements were the effort of Turf Paradise with the OTB owners in Tucson.
With Tucson Greyhound Park involved.
If I was not there, I do not believe that Tucson Greyhound Park was a party to that horse negotiation. Meaning, they weren't notified this is what.
But the dome is still in place, so I thought with the dome, in order for Turf to be bringing its signal in, they had to be going through a current permittee. And
yes.
So
as of January 1st,
that goes away. But after January 1st, I would think Tucson Greyhound Park still is the controlling interest of that regardless of the dome going away. They're the ones that, for years, have put the work into building this thing.
You have just heard testimony by Mr. Alston that says we have valid contracts for 2021.
But those contracts were signed while the dome is in place.
That's correct.
So going forward, the dome rule would still be in play because they were signed when the dome was in play.
I'm not, I don't know. I'm just trying to be clear on what the issue is here.
And then with this going away, why would you have signed a contract beyond the dome date when there's going to be new rules in play?
90 days.
Tom, sure, why not?
Director, Chairman, Commissioners, real quickly, I don't want you to be depressed because we have, and I think they and PGP will corroborate this, have had substantive conversation with them about cooperating on this issue and feel like it's pretty close to being solved. Is that, I
agree to agree.
Yeah, so, the wild card in this whole conversation is who the horsemen decide to send a signal to down there. They've told us that they will not send a signal down to TGP anymore, which means that the horse signal needs to be sent directly to probably the bar owner. And that therein lies the issue here, which I think is what Greg keeps saying is, and I know Mr. Olson says otherwise, and I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but if not executing those contracts, not approving those contracts between Turf and the bar owner, then that enables that bar owner and TGP to decide who they want to get the signal from. If they say, it doesn't matter what happens, Turf's contracts with those bar owners are valid, despite the fact that the commission has invalidated them, then that kind of answers the question. But that's the other question is and maybe the horsemen should speak. At this point, they've told us we weren't in the meeting, but they agreed to not send the signal down to TGP, and we feel like we've got something with TGP that would answer would solve that. And I think we're pretty close. And in fact, I think we've agreed to meet after this meeting with Rito to hopefully button that up. So I just want to let you know that there isn't all this crazy infighting going on. There's actually been some good conversations to bring this to a solution.
Good. Well, that's what we want. You guys to come up with a solution. Jerry?
Commission, we entered into agreements with these OTBs a year ago last April. These are not brand new contracts. And the only thing we brought them forward under our permit, like all of our other OTBs, isn't that correct? All the OTBs that we have come up now?
You have them, the contracts are good, the ones you submitted for this past renewal are good through 2021.
Okay. So that's all of our OTBs. There's nothing unique about the ones we've operated ones for 20 years up in Maricopa County, in Phoenix Greyhound Park, or if you go into Padre Murphy's or you go into the hangar, you'll see a separate teller, and you'll see one for us, one for them, and you'll see two types of machines. We don't use the same manufacturer, and they're operated separately. And the horsemen have made clear to me that they're just as was just said at the podium, that the horsemen said they don't want any revenue going to the dogs starting January 1st. They don't want any signal, they don't want any deal down there with them. And they instructed me, I spoke to Bob Hutt, he said I told you folks, and he told us the same thing. No deals with them. So when they're talking about these deals, horsemen have to approve anything we do. And these contracts that we entered into a year ago last April, nobody has raised a fuss about it. The department knew we had these deals. Correct? These were deals we've had since a year ago last April.
With your permit renewal that you've submitted contracts, I do believe the contracts were signed in May of this year.
David, were they signed?
No, the contracts were submitted back, were signed back in April, they were submitted with our racing permit in May.
Is that this year?
Yes.
Is that the first time you've had agreements with those, or has it been ongoing?
We had had contracts with those sites ever since they.
So we've had previous agreements with those same OTVs for how long, David?
Ever since they've been open.
So this is not something new, I guess is what I'm saying. It's being brought up like this is some brand new thing.
This may be out of line, but can I ask you a question, sir?
Sure.
Okay. We just heard that Arizona Downs and that there may be an agreement for the horse signals for Arizona Downs. Is that correct? Is what I heard. Okay. If that happens, will you require those 5 OTVs, the 4 OTVs? You were telling me that you have contracts with those OTVs. How are they going to get the signals?
That's what I don't know, because we have contracts and we're going to enforce them.
Therein lies the issue.
We're going to enforce we've had these contracts with those same OTVs.
Tucson Greyhound Park is
As long as
back
they
into
as long as they've been in business.
It's not Greyhound Park.
it's
The
been
way
back.
I understand it, they're out of business January 1st. They can have their dog racing OTVs,
Simulcast.
but they don't have horse racing.
Simulcast is legal past for dogs. It's legal past January 1st, 2000.
That's fine. They can simulcast all the dog
That is
races
the
they
issue.
want to.
We'll be in those same places and we'll separate them, just like we do up in Maricopa County and have done it for over 20 years. It's over 20 years that we've been doing it up here in Maricopa County with Phoenix Greyhound Park. They have their booth. We're in the same area. Separate tellers, separate machines. We've been doing it for 20 years. And again, I'll repeat, those OTPs in Tucson, we have had contracts with them since the day they opened. There's just nothing new about this.
Who has now taken control of Tucson OTBs regarding horse racing?
The horsemen.
Turf parents.
Turf parents.
May I speak?
Look at their contracts.
Sure.
Alicia Heiser, General Manager, Tucson Greyhound Park. They do, have had those contracts out there. Those contracts have no out for the OTB whatsoever in there. The OTB cannot give notice to Turf Paradise for 30 days, 60 days. We can give Turf Paradise notice, but the OTB itself is locked into those contracts that are running longer than the permit period also. By not saying, hey, listen, I don't want to have a separate booth. No, you have to have a separate booth, Jerry was saying. No, I want to work with one where, we can come up with some deal with sharing a teller and sharing expenses and stuff like that. But if that OTD owner doesn't want a horse signal in there anymore and just wants to have a dog signal, which was brought up to one of the OTBs, Brian was up here the other day, Brian can't back out of that contract with Turf. He's going to make them have another booth and another thing. So that's where we're trying to say that these are not valid. How can you have a contract that only one party can get out of? I mean, I'm sure it's legal, but is it fair? If they want to go with another vendor or another provider, shouldn't there be a 60-day notice or something along that line? But they're valid till 2021, they're saying. So.
All right. I'm confused. I'm back to, I like what Tommy says about let's table this. I don't want to hear any more.
Yeah, it's not going to solve the issue, and I don't know if the issue is going to be solved by this alleged meeting. I would like to. I think you made a motion to go for executive session.
Still waiting for a second.
I'll second that motion because I would like to hear from council.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we go into executive session.
Okay, so Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Heupel?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless?
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes. If executive session is approved, minutes of and discussions made at an executive session required by law to be kept confidential and shall not be communication to any person outside this meeting room except to members of the board. A person who is subject to the discussion pursuant to ARS 38431-3A1, the Auditor General in connection with the audit authorized by the law, and the Attorney General.
Okay, the motion has been made, seconded, and carries. It is it is 11:17 a.m. and this open session is recessed. Okay, Okay, hang on a sec, please. The following is the third open session of the September 13th Arizona Racing Commission meeting held at 1110 West Washington, Suite 250, Phoenix, Arizona 85007.
All right, I'd like to call back to order the 663rd regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting.
Okay, I'm going to do a roll call. Commissioner Garay?
Here.
Commissioner Lawless?
Here.
Commissioner Heupel?
Here.
Commissioner McClintock?
Here.
And we're reconvened at 11:44 a.m.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion at this time for under C, new business, item number 2, Pima County off-track betting facilities, to go ahead and table this and instruct staff to come up with some suggestions for us for our October 11th meeting, and also would love to see everyone continue negotiating, but hopefully the staff can come up with some good suggestions for us to look at on the October 11th meeting.
I'll second.
Point of discussion, I agree with Lori. As I said last time, when you get the next meeting, we probably will act, and certain stakeholders may not like our decision. So I really reiterate what Rory said and encourage you guys to sit down and work this out yourselves so that we don't have to impose our will on you.
No.
Oh,
I need to say anything to you.
shall I do a call on the vote? Okay. Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless?
Yes.
Commissioner Heupel?
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes.
Motion carries. This matter is tabled, and staff will follow through and let you know at the October 11th meeting.
Let's move on to item number 3, Arizona Downs off-track betting facilities. I guess we need to approve these one at a time. I see Kenny, is it Dawn?
Yeah.
Okay, Kenny Dawn has signed up to speak to this issue.
Good morning, Commissioner. My name is Kenny Dong, and I own Stigler's Sports Bar, which is 1 mile away from Bowshooter. And as a small business owner, it is too close. We always try to avoid competition, and that's kind of like a direct competition to us. And it was why I asked Dave Johnson from Turf Paradise to assure me that they don't put another OTB within 3 miles away from me. So, we don't have a direct competition.
What's your exact location?
43rd Avenue in Peoria. And they are located at, I think,
3337.
Right, which is 1 minute drive away from us. And as a citizen, I think there should be regulation in terms of how far, each OTB is allowed. Otherwise, we're going to have OTBs in every sports bar. And within 3 miles of my location, there's about 25 sports bars. So if there's no regulation in terms of how far they can be, I think every sports bar will be a gambling place. That's why I oppose the opening up another OTB at Bowshooter. Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
When is the expectation for Bullshooters to open up? Is everything complete, or would they not be opening up until after October 11th?
The application is complete. The City of Phoenix has approved the OTB location. All licenses have been done. Background investigations done. Everything is complete at this point in time.
And what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is to approve it.
Okay.
Dave, do you want to say something?
Dave Author for Arizona Downs. I once heard a judge say, if you're going to win, don't say anything. So I don't really know how y'all are going to vote on this. But let me give you a little bit of information on how we came up with bull shooters, and not to try to extend this. We met with bull shooters in May, or maybe it was even in April, and started talking with them. The representative from bull shooters said that he'd already spoken with someone from Turf Paradise and had decided he didn't want to do business with them or didn't want to open an OTB. So it shouldn't be any surprise to Turf that we went there. But we did go over there, and we started the negotiation. And then finally, and at the same time when we talked to them, we looked at the list of OTBs published by the state gaming commission or the gaming division, and Stingers is not on there. And this morning I looked again, and Stingers is still not on there. So there was no notice that we had that Stingers was even around or was even an OTB business at that time. Subsequent to that time, we looked it up and we discovered that Stingers had been an OTB and had gone out of business as an OTB apparently in the middle of 2017. And then we discovered that they opened up again in June of this year. So none of this was information that we had when we signed a contract with bull shooters to have an OTB at that site. Stingers is about 1.5 miles or 1.3 miles away. We don't know whether or not we'll take any of their business or they'll take our business. But what we do know is it's a nice spot, bull shooters, and it's we believe it'll do very well. We don't have any idea how Stingers will do. And it's not surprising in any business that you could stand up in front of the commission and say, we don't want any competition. But, that's the way business is. And we did not intentionally try to take their deal. They're still not on the list. I don't know how long they'll last or whether they will. But at this point, we're ready to go on bull shooters. It's been recommended that you approve it. And we're excited about moving in. We've got the equipment in. The city of Phoenix. This gentleman also showed up at the city of Phoenix. Was it you?
Yeah, that was me.
And he showed up at the city of Phoenix and raised an objection. The city council said no, and they approved us. So appreciate if you grant our application. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, Kenny, we hate to disappoint anybody, but since it's been approved by the city and recommended by the department.
The reason I'm here is mainly because, it's, I think there should be, competition is good. You know what I mean? I like to compete myself. That's why I opened the bar. I bought the bar about 6 months ago. They took the horse racing out because I bought it, and we remodeled the whole place. And, I just think that, if you don't have any regulation, in terms of how far each OTB can be from each other, you're going to have it everywhere. And, like I said, as a citizen, I don't want to see that. I don't want every sports bar to be a gambling place. In the future, we're going to have sports betting. Everybody loves sports. And, I bet you that everybody's going to go bet on sports. And I think it will be a big concern if we have, sports betting in every corner. There's like 2 other bars across the street from me, 300 feet away. If they have OTB as well, then everybody pretty much get their paycheck on the weekend and then spend all the money there.
I know, and I totally agree with you that there needs to be some limitation. It's a work in progress. We're trying to come up with a plan. Unfortunately, you're a victim of planning not being.
I don't consider myself to be a victim. Competition is good, but I think this is like, I think you guys are rushing it in terms of approving another OTB. You know what I mean? And because there's a lot of money involved, I guess, But, I don't think that, it's a good idea to approve it right away without, taking a deep look at it. You know what I mean? And it was also why I asked Dave Johnson from Turf Paradise, can you assure me that, within 3 miles, that I won't have any competition? You know what I mean? Because we pretty much don't get a cut of the commissions that, from horse racing. We just get the customer.
Right.
And they spend money on beers and food. That's all we get. You know what I mean? But, so, I just don't think it's a good idea, to just go, I'm going to approve it. The city, just because the city approved it, doesn't mean you guys have to follow their footsteps. Approve it. I think that, you should just take a deep look at it, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think we could take a deep look at it, but I think we're going to come to the same conclusion. There's really, I see nothing in here that would lead me to believe that I should vote against this opening. And, while Dave Johnson may have given you a guarantee that nothing would open up within 3 miles, really the only body that could do that would have been us, and we can't even do it because there's separate votes and we don't even know how we're going to vote. So there just could be no guarantee unless it was in law.
Right.
That something wasn't going to be opening up another OTB within 3 miles.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I make one real quick comment?
Sure.
David Johnson, Assistant General Manager, Turf Paradise, Chairman, Commissioners. Just a point of clarification, Mr. Arthur did say that bullshooters had been approached by Turf Paradise. That is true. When we did approach bullshooters, Stingers was not an open location. It was going through the transition, and we did not know if that was going to be opened as an OTB, so we were actively recruiting that area. Once we knew Kenny had taken over Stingers, we stayed with Stingers and went forward.
I know, and I know your guarantee was that you wouldn't open an OTB in the neighborhood, but you don't know what somebody else is going to do. So we understand. We understand that it's a situation that's in flux, and I feel bad, but it's been approved by the city and recommended, and so we need a motion.
I move to approve bullshooters as a OTB for Arizona Downs.
I'll second.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless?
Yes.
Commissioner Heupel?
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes.
Motion carries. Bullshooters is approved as an OTB for Arizona Downs.
Okay, item 3B is the Museum Club and Flagstaff. Greg, you want to give us your...
Yeah, this is obviously in Flagstaff. The City of Flagstaff has approved the permit. All licenses and owners and managers are licensed. Everything okay. We would recommend approval.
Okay. Make a motion.
Wasn't this an off-track betting?
Yes, it was. It was a former off-track betting.
Spent a few Saturdays in this.
I move to approve item 3.3B.
I'll second.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless?
Yes.
Commissioner Heupel?
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes.
Motion carries. Museum Club and Flagstaff is approved as an OTB for Arizona Downs.
New business item number 4, Turf Paradise LLC. Approval to open the Showcase Sports Bar in Yuma as an OTB facility.
Once again, the City of Yuma has approved this location. People are licensed. Everything is in order. We recommend approval.
Move we approve.
Second.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless?
Yes.
Commissioner Heupel?
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes.
Motion carries. Showcase Sports Bar in Yuma has been approved as a Turf Paradise off-track betting facility.
New business item number 5.
This has to do with the legislation passed and signed, creating a funding mechanism for the return of live racing to Arizona rural counties with less than 800,000 people. We were challenged with putting together a application. The County Employee Racing Fund provides you grants up to $40,000 for rural counties that commit to providing at least 50% of the amount of the grant in an effort to return live racing to the county. Attached, you have the grant application in front of you. The deadline for the grants is set to December 1st of each year. We will present them to the Commission for your approval. Everything is in order, and you just need to approve the application.
Okay. Too bad Rito in a county with less than 800,000. So we need a motion to...
I move to approve the approval of the county fair grant application form.
Second.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless?
Yes.
Commissioner Heupel?
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes.
Motion carries. The grant application form has been approved.
And new business item number 6 is the approval of the unique Pick 6 waiver.
Yes, this is a 2-year odyssey, and we finally are at the point to where we are able to, again, through legislation that created the rules exemption. It is a unique Pick 6, similar to the Rainbow Pick 6 in Florida, where there's one unique ticket that takes the jackpot. We've worked hard and long on this rule. It's very similar to one that I think Dave Johnson had presented to me a couple of years ago. We're in place. All you need to do is approve the rule, and we'll continue the rules process and hope to have it in place by October 13th. I'm relatively sure we'll be able to do that.
Okay.
Move to approve the unique Pick 6 wager rule.
I'll second.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless?
Yes.
Commissioner Heupel?
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes.
Motion carries to approve the unique Pick 6 wager.
Okay, we're on to agenda item D, safety report, Greg.
Yes. Staff returned to Turf Paradise on Tuesday after Labor Day. I immediately instructed them to go around the complex, take pictures of issues that they see. As always, every staff member that's out of Turf Paradise is a safety steward. They're constantly looking for any type of damage, storm damage or anything like that. I've talked to staff almost daily now, and they are telling me that repairs are being done. In fact, over the summer, I think Mr. Francia indicated there was some storm damage and things like that. It appears those things are being taken care of adequately. I will be out there probably tomorrow to go ahead and take a further look at some of these issues, and we'll have a little bit different of a safety report to you in October before the start of the racing season. And we are in constant contact with Turf Paradise and the issues that come up daily throughout the season. And last season they were real responsive on getting some of this stuff done, so I expect the same philosophy this year. I want to switch over now to the catastrophic review report that I have provided you. And Commissioner Gray, I thank you for bringing it to the attention. And we've experienced the dog race, what I would call fiasco, with the elimination of dog racing. And this is true, that if we don't get this issue tackled, horse racing will be next with animal activists and things of that nature. And the first thing they will pick out is the number of catastrophic injuries that happen on horse racing. This is the first year of a many-year project, and more importantly, a commitment by not only everybody in horse racing, but it needs to be a commitment for every permittee in the state of Arizona to tackle this issue, whether you're a commercial permittee or a county fair permittee. Take responsibility for preventing catastrophic injuries and doing everything possible that we can have a decline in the number that happens year in and year out. As I reported last year, entirely in the state of Arizona, we had 50 catastrophic injuries. 31 in afternoon racing. Training, we had 11. And we had 8 sickness-related catastrophic injuries. That's going to happen. The colics, the pneumonias, these are fragile animals, and sometimes that's going to happen. But it's the catastrophic injuries we need to tackle. Of the 50 fatalities, 42 were thoroughbreds, 8 were poor horses. A total of 43 different trainers were connected to these horses. The national mortality rates what the jockey clubs come up with, in 2017, they reported a slight uptick in their national fatality rate of 1.61 per 1,000 starts. Currently, in the last season with Arizona-wide, we are 3.41 per 1,000. We have to tackle this. We We have to have cooperation from everybody to get this down. Of the catastrophic injuries, 27 out of the 31 were front leg injuries. Cannon bones, sesamoids. 7 out of the 11 total training. 7 out of 11 of the training fatalities were also leg injuries. 18 of the 31 race-related deaths occurred in claiming races. And claiming races represent 57% of all races last year. The most fatalities were on the dirt tracks and occurred in sprint races. There were 0 fatalities occurring in distant races of more than a mile. At Turf Paradise, there were 33 catastrophic breakdowns that occurred on the dirt track, 23 race-related, 10 during morning workouts. At Rito, there were 3 race-related, 1 during a workout. And even at Sonora County Fair, their 2-day meet, they had 1 fatality in their meet. Of particular note is that during the period between February 24th and March 11th of 2018, there were 11 racing fatalities in that time. That represents 35% of the fatalities in a 3-week period. We made some improvements last year, believe it or not. For the first time, we had what I would call limited pre-race vet exams of horses at Turf Paradise in Rito. These exams consisted of overall assessment of the horse, palpitation of the limbs, and evaluation of the horse's gait while jogging. During the 2017-18 season, there were approximately 1,500 pre-race exams that were conducted at Turf Paradise and Rito. However, each day, there were more horses identified that were at risk that could be examined. Meaning, and let me tell you how this was done last year. Last year, the 2 stewards would come up independently and based on a pre-race protocol on risk factors that we determined, they would select horses that met that threshold, meaning that they would say this could be a horse that would have increased risk of injury. Independently, those 2 stewards would send it to me. I would do the same thing. I would come up, look through the day's program, look through the form. I would identify those horses I felt that were at risk. If all 3 of us picked the same horse, automatically went through a pre-race exam. And then I had to choose because some days we did 6 to 15 on a day, but there were days that I had 20 horses or 25, but I had to then whittle it down. Okay. One of the things we did last year for the first time also was a necropsy. There were 47 necropsies submitted to Midwestern University. We have what I would call a world-class vet school out there, and they are a tremendous partner in helping us do this. Funding was provided by Turf Paradise, and I am thankful to them for this. This program must be continued. This had helped us identify specific areas where these injuries occurred, and then we were able to do the equine safety review committees. Another thing we need to continue, where we sat down in a room with the horseman, the vet, the state vet, Turf Paradise representatives, and we talked about the history of this horse. Was it on a vet's list? Was there anything that the trainer knew or would have done differently? Is there anything in the past of the horse, injuries and things like that? A wealth of information came out of there. At times, they were very emotional. And again, I don't think there's any horseman out there that wants a catastrophic injury to occur. So some of these people actually broke down and cried during these things because it is an emotional event to lose a horse to these injuries. Another thing we did last year was when a horse needed to work off the vet list, in the past it just needed to pass a vet exam and it was good to race. However, we added another condition in which the horse had to pass a blood test, meaning he could not be on any medication that would, what I would call mask an injury, something like bute, that may help the horse get through that workout. So they had to pass the blood test. During the 2017-18 racing meet, 98 horses attempted to meet that requirement, getting off the vet list and passing the medical blood test. 5 of those failed due to the levels of bute, which is an anti-inflammatory medication, which could have matched the signs. Those 5 had to be re-examined and retested before they would get off the vet list and able to be entered. Another thing we did last year, and I have to thank the Horsemen in Turf Paradise for this, but they eliminated shockwave therapy on the backstretch. Okay, it's very hard to figure out on shockwave therapy if a horse has had it. Okay, and there's little you can do identify that a horse has been shockwave, but through their efforts, they had eliminated all shockwave equipment on the backstretch of Turf Paradise, and we will continue to do that. So what did we learn through all this? I've got 3 recommendations that I think need to be done, and they need to be done now. The first recommendation is we need to have pre-race exams for all horses, not just 20, not just 15. All horses that are entered to race should have a pre-race exam. Again, the shotgun approach to this issue is not the answer. I believe the horsemen want all horses to be examined, and I think every committee should have in place going forward a 100% pre-race exam program. The second, during these equine meetings that we had, track issues came into play. And every day we'd hear maybe the track was too hard, maybe it shouldn't have been sealed, maybe it shouldn't have been done. But the track issues need to be taken care of. The number 2 recommendation is for every committee to reach out to experts on their tracks. The track superintendents do a good job, but there's experts out there that can help us on making a safer track. One of them is Mick Peterson. Mick is the executive director of the Racing Surfaces Testing Lab. He is widely known as the guru of racetracks. Okay? I've had several conversations with him over the summer. One of the little things he told me over the summer was moisture is the biggest thing for a racetrack. Okay? How much moisture is put in there? And he asked me, do you know if there's a rain gauge at the racetrack? Now, I asked Mr. Francia today if there was, and he says there is. I did not know that. But those are the things, the little things we can do. And the reason why he likes that is because that's the only way you can tell naturally how a racetrack is getting moisture. Do it around the trucks, but that's the way, one of the things. He also has a database that some of the superintendents log in daily what they've done to their tracks. I've talked to Mick. He has said that Arizona is a unique state, but I think he's willing to work with us. I encourage the track to reach out to Mick. There's another gentleman out there, Steve Cook, with the NTRA Safety Initiative, wealth of knowledge. I encourage every track to attempt to become accredited safety. It's a must be done to get these catastrophic injuries down. My point is there are resources available to us. I'm not saying, I'm not throwing the track superintendents on the bus. I'm just saying we need to reach out and make an effort to make sure that when race day, that track is the safest possible track for not only the equine athlete, but the human athlete, the men and women that get on that track and race every day. The last thing I would recommend is an adjustment to the racing schedule. I just told you that 35% of the fatalities happen in a 3-week period. Turf Paradise has one of the longest meets in the nation. Okay. And I've spoken with the horsemen about this. I think there needs to be an adjustment to the racing schedule. Rita runs in February and March on top of Turf Paradise, and then now we have Arizona Downs coming in May of next year. We may want to think about a timeout, maybe a 1-week period, maybe a 2-week period, till we give these horses a rest. And that's what...
What were those dates again? February...
24th through, I think, March
13th, 17th, 13th.
My wedding anniversary is on March 11th, so I'm going to go with that day.
Yeah. 30%, 35% of the horses
35%.
within that 3 week period.
Did you explain that? I wasn't sure. 35%
Late February, early March, in about a 3 week period.
35% of the year's fatalities happen in that time.
And was that with horses that had been running for the full season?
That was it. Well, I'll have to go back and look at that.
It's weird. I can see maybe it's May when it's 100 degrees.
There were 11 fatalities, racing fatalities, in those that time, and it was March 11th.
Yeah. What is a pre-race exam? What actually is that done by a?
It's done by the track vet. Rules require the track vet to do it.
And is it done in the paddock or is
No,
it
it's
done
outside the barn. A visual inspection, feeling of the legs, watch the gait. We'll go back and forth. There's specific things that the pre-race
look
exam
for?
requires.
And we have not been doing that.
We have not been doing pre-race exams.
Selective 20
Last
horses.
year
I
was the
think you
first
said.
time we did pre-race exams.
Okay.
Needs to be every horse.
How many golf carts did we have to buy?
Good.
I mean, Greg, I was looking through the report. I think it's excellent in what you guys are doing. I'm really appreciative, and I think it's going to be, for the survival of horse racing, it's going to be about the only thing that can help save it. Because I saw what they did in dog racing. I see what's going on. You heard the stories. 3 dogs die every week or something in Florida. And this is something we got to work on, not just to save horse racing, but because we care. And I think everyone in this room, we do care. And I applaud you and everyone involved that helped out. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Again, this is a long-term project. Data gathering and consistently working, but it's a commitment that we need to do now.
That's good. Thanks, Greg. That's a lot of work. Thanks for doing it. Director Casillas, any budget report?
Currently, the division's doing fine financially, and we'll be able to go forward through this meeting without any complications.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you on your microphone.
I'll repeat this. The division is doing fine financially. Currently, we will be able to get through this race meet without any difficulties. We have submitted our new budget to OSPB, and everything's looking okay right now. Going forward into 19, we'll have to take a good, strong look at that and look at our numbers. And with Arizona Downs coming on, obviously there will be more revenue coming in. However, we have to work with OSPB for appropriation. So we're looking good on the timing.
Thanks. Permittee reports. American Greyhound Racing.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Arizona Downs.
Director, Commissioners, Chairman,
Sorry, identify yourself on the record.
Tom Author.
Thank you.
Tom Author representing Arizona Downs. Things are moving along up there. We're well in our construction on the 3rd floor, making sure we get open for the meet in May. And I think you're probably going to be hearing a lot of this radius stuff. For example, I just spoke with Mr. Dong. He said, it's probably less than 10% of my business. It's probably less than that. So, the lottery is $900 million a year. There's no radius clause between lottery machines and pull tabs in bars. The one place where we have an experience with this is in Prescott, and the handle in July last July was up almost $120,000 on a base of $192,000. So now that may go down. It's just 1 month. We're waiting for this month's August numbers. So I don't think this gloom and doom guy's opening up. We're not going to open up next door to a guy, but these cost about $10,000 a month to operate. you don't make money on them unless they're Padre Murphys or something like that. So you're just not going to be able to open them all over the place. But there will be some conflict. But I think what's going to happen is the horsemen are going to make a lot more money. So, and I don't mean to dwell on that, but I just want to make sure everybody's heads up on not necessarily buying into this. We're going to steal from each other, because the one case where it's actually in existence, it's improved things. That may not be the case everywhere, but I think it's going to be better than everybody thinks. So, but at any rate, and then finally, you guys are now learning why we have a racing commission. So good luck. Appreciate the help.
I thought we just approved minutes.
Thanks.
Days are over.
County fairs. Anybody want to report any county fair news? Rito, Jay.
Just to mention that we will be submitting our dates for next year, beginning on the same weekends that we had last year, weekend after Super Bowl, running for the next 6 weekends. Also, we got an invitation yesterday to send interns back to the Breeders' Cup, so the kids are really excited about that. That's all I got.
Can I be an intern? Tucson Greyhound.
Nothing additional for today.
Thanks, Alicia. Turf Paradise.
He tells us about the coyote.
Chairman McClintock, Commissioners, Director Casillas, for the record, Vincent Francia, General Manager of Turf Paradise Race Course. Literally a month from now, the 63rd race meet will open. As I speak, the vans are coming into the race course, bringing the horses in for this race meet. We're doing a number of things this year a little bit differently. One is the new wager, which you just approved for the rules, the Grand Canyon Pick Six. It's just like a Pick Six. You're asked to pick the winners of 6 consecutive races. But the extra added twist, if you want the entire carryover pool, you have to be the lone ticket holder. If you're one of the winners, consolations are paid out, but the pool keeps rolling over and rolling over until there's one ticket holder. And in regards to that, the HBPA and Turf Paradise partnered up on opening weekend. We're going to seed that pool $25,000 to generate the interest of the horse players right off the bat in that particular wager. Also on opening day, what we are doing, opening day is always festive because it's the return of the horses. But we set that day aside to honor our veterans, Native American veterans, and our first responders. So we're going to have a lot of the tribal leaders out at the racetrack participating in that. What I want to turn my attention to is the safety report. I didn't receive a copy of it. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't. A little disappointed that our input was not asked, because this is of all the priorities that I have at the race course, this one's at the top. And it was heartbreaking after all the things we had implemented last season to have our fatality rate march up like that. My suggestion is we get together with the department as soon as possible to go over these recommendations and have our own input to comment on them. The pre-race inspections we do, or what we instituted last year, that is the cost that the race course bears. We do it willingly. Our interest is the same as that of the division to get this fatality rate down as much as possible. However, pre-race inspections can only do so much. The vet is looking at the horse. He may be asking him to walk. He may be asking him to jog a little bit. But if there's some sort of internal problem with that horse, he's not going to be able to see it. Therefore, the horse is going to be cleared to race. And unfortunately, some of them go out and they break down. To take time out in the race meet, that's a cost of the horses. It's a cost of the racetrack. It's something we'd have to seriously look at. Let me address the time period, February to March. I'm not surprised and was not surprised because I keep my own stats on all of this. that more fatalities. One is you have now a couple months of racing under the horses. Some of the horses are tired. Equally important is not the condition of the racetrack, and I'll address that separately in a second. It's that the temperature shifts in Arizona during that period are dramatic. They're going from, there could be 20 to 30 degree shifts, so that affects the racetrack itself. And so we monitor a lot more closely. How do we do that? I have two sources. One is the trainers in the morning. After training, if there's something not right about the track, I hear about it instantly. The same with the jockeys during racing. If there's something with the dirt or the turf track that they don't feel is safe out there, I hear about it instantly. During that time period, February to March, it is customary that each week we are adding or sprinkling sand onto the main track. And the reason we're doing that is the temperature shifts are so dramatic with the earth that it causes it to ball up, and when the horses are running, the balls are coming back and hitting the horses and hitting the rider. So we know about it. We tend to it a little bit differently as compared to, say, the beginning of the meet and compared to everything after March. My recommendations, I'm a little bit more harsh than Mr. Stiles, and he and I dialogue on this in quite a bit. And that is, if a trainer has, after due diligence, after his due process has been fulfilled, if he's found guilty of a prohibited substance, what the state classifies as a prohibited substance, I think he should leave the racetrack. I don't think we do ourselves any favor whatsoever to have a policy that continues to allow those trainers to continue at Turf Paradise. I know that's severe. There's probably no one in this room, much less the industry, that would agree with that. Secondly, and this is inescapable, as Mr. Stiles mentioned, Turf runs one of the longest meets in the country. And when you look at the 131 race days, you also have to figure in the other additional days of training, because breakdowns occur during training as well as racing. The fact that we are up to this level of fatalities after instituting some of these policies, and we weren't naive, we know we can't get to zero, but we certainly wanted to get the rate down and to have the rate go the other way. What I'm saying is, if you're going to have a meet this long, a racing meet this long, along with the amount of training days that complement that meet, you are going to have a lot of breakdowns. And until we're willing to me, address certain situations with more severity as to punishment, this problem is going to continue. I've been in racing a long time. It happens with claiming horses, more so because there's more claiming races. It happens with some of our most noted horses too in stakes races. But everything we can do prior to these horses getting on the track, because it's not only a loss of an equine, which makes the entire sport, but there's a consequential injury to the rider who's on that horse. And some of them, as we know, have been severe. So Turf looks forward to meeting with the division at their convenience to go over all these and to make some suggestion. But I think there's even some additional things we can do if we're willing to take a hard line on certain matters that happen to be a reality of this particular sport.
Thanks, Vince.
Yeah, you bet, Mr. Chairman.
Have the coyotes been moved?
The coyotes we relocate, yes, periodically. As a matter of fact, some of them were just relocated to my neck of the woods in Spring.
All right. Optional Industry Stakeholder Association updates. Arizona Counties Racing. Arizona Greyhound Racing. Arizona Quarter Horse Association.
Nothing to report this time.
Thank you. Arizona Thoroughbred Breeders Association.
Nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. HBPA.
Chairman, Commissioners, Director. Leroy Gussman, the Arizona HPTA. I don't have a lot to say today, but we are back in our office and operating. We did have our first stakeholders meeting on Tuesday, as you heard. And even though we didn't come out of that meeting with a solution or an agreement, I felt like it was a meeting that was good dialogue and a lot of good communication. I think we're gaining with our meetings. From our very first meeting, I thought that one was went much smoother. I would like to say that Turf Paradise did do a lot of repairs over the summer. If any of you went out and saw what the backside looked like in mid-July after the storms went through and all the stalls were upside down and scattered all over the backside, it's all been put back together. Looks very good. The streets potholes have been fixed. I've been out checking that. So I want to thank Turf Paradise for that. Also, again, on the safety report, one of the issues I felt was the Harrells weren't maybe the best, and I understand we bought 2 new Harrells, so I think that's going to help. Thank Turf Paradise for that. Also on the safety report, I just want to say I've raced horses, Saratoga, Churchill, Arlington, Canterbury, Prairie Meadows, Oak Lawn, Horseman's Park, Fawner. I've been a lot of racetracks, and this is the only jurisdiction where there's not pre-race exam on every horse before every race. And I would like to see that implemented at Arizona racetracks. And I have nothing further to add. Any questions?
Thanks, Leroy. Jockey's Guild. Great. Commissioner reports. Summary of current events affecting the Arizona Racing Commission. I'm not sure that can be summarized. Only commission members or the director may report. No discussion or action may be taken on matters reported unless properly noticed for legal action or discussion. So, are there any current events other than the ones that have previously been discussed? And then identification of matters to be put on future agendas, and I think we've done that.
Yeah, that's what we had. And then, what was just mentioned a few minutes ago about people who get busted at Turf Paradise, why aren't they walked out the door right away? I'd like to hear a little more on why that's not the case, and
what
is there options for us?
On a future agenda, or?
Yes. Oh, about the, if a trainer gets busted giving drugs to the horse or whatever, why aren't they walked out right away?
What is the current penalty or sanction to a trainer?
It depends on the drug. I mean, again, there's therapeutic drugs,
right,
okay, that they can use, just like any athlete. They have to be down to a certain level for race day. And sometimes
they miss the...
Yeah. But certainly class 1, class 2s, cocaines, that type of stuff.
And that's what I'm more interested in.
Well, there's a lot of issues with that. I can discuss that.
The next regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting tentatively is scheduled for 10 a.m. on Thursday, October 11th, 2018. In this location and is subject to change based on a quorum. Current information about the Arizona Racing Commission. Well, we're pretty much, there's nobody signed up. Okay, follow the public. Does anybody? Yes, I'm sorry. I did. I skipped you. Sorry.
Tim Kelly. I had one issue that I wanted to go over with. I was involved with the Arizona County Fair Association back in 2007 as vice president of the association. And back in 2007, we had around 7 or 8 county fairs that were running at the time. It was probably the best that it's ever been in the history of the state. And I'm also involved as with the Pima County Fair Horsemen's Commission in Tucson, and so it was saddened to find out that with this new help from the state to fund the County Fair Association, that with 2 tracks that have responded that are possibly interested in participating this year, that Rito was, because of the new law, was not allowed to participate. It's sad from the standpoint that as a member of the Pima County Commission, that one of our commissioners, and for the past several years, has made a yearly contribution to the El Morro Foundation, which funded $40,000 in purses to the county fair at Rito this past year. And he has made a history of doing this on a yearly basis. With the money that's been generated by the legislation, only 2 county fairs have surfaced to participate this year. And with us not being able to participate and get funded, the horsemen are really at risk in losing out on this, because that would be money that we would put back into horse purses with the additional funding that could take place. So I just wanted to reiterate that it's a disappointment to us that because of politics, we can't participate, and in the long run, horsemen lose out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. I totally agree with that. And sorry, I forgot you were at the top of the list. We had too many other things going on. But I agree. It's too bad Pima County can't participate in this, because we need all the funding we can get. With that, I guess we can adjourn.
Well, we need a motion.
Adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawless?
Yes.
Commissioner Heupel?
Yes.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes.
Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned as of 12:36 p.m.